Let me welcome Lydia Hric Machova of Language Mentoring, the founder of Language Mentoring. And you are having EOS self-implemented for 2 years already. So tell me, what did it bring to you personally and also to your team?
It has brought us amazing benefits, but I would say the number one thing that it brought me is time. And I can tell you actually pretty precisely with numbers how much time I have gained because of EOS. In 2020 and 2021, I worked 1,600 hours a year. And I know it quite precisely because I track my working time using an app called Toggle. And I'm talking about the net working time. So when I leave my office to, I don't know, make a cup of tea or something, it's off. Okay, so it's like net minutes. So 1,600 hours. And in 2022, it was just 527 hours. So I got more than 1,000 hours extra time that I could use as I wanted. And my business was still growing in that year, which is actually quite interesting too, because 20 and 21 were like great years for us in my section, in the business sphere where I work. And 2022 was a very difficult one. And yet we managed to grow the business 8% whilst I was working 65% less. So I think this really comes down to EOS.
All right, amazing. And was it that you gained extra time, but it didn't affect your team, that they were taking the hours of yours, or the team also got more healthier, or also some benefits from EOS?
They did. It wasn't just that my working time was pushed over onto someone else's plate. My team worked 14% less. So we became 14% more effective, even though we grew the team. But because not everyone is working full time, this doesn't mean that everyone works full time. We became more effective. And also my integrator, Veronica, she had the best year of her life, taking as many holidays as she has never taken as many. So it really was the best year for us because of EOS. I truly believe that.
Incredible. All right, what are the three most important factors in self-implementing EOS from your point of view, from your experience?
Right. I would say number one thing is, if you want to self-implement, you need to make sure that you have someone on your team, preferably the integrator, but not strictly, who is really passionate about EOS and who is really the implementer, because they need to basically push it forward and insist that we have all the meetings, and we introduce the new features, and we create the accountability sheet, and we write down the values and all these steps. If someone just reads a book and thinks, well, I may take a few ideas, I don't think it will work, because you will not have the complex system, so it will never be enough. So I would say really passionate person about EOS. Second, you need to have a visionary and integrator acting together nicely. So there needs to be a good relationship between the two of them. I believe if someone is a visionary and doesn't have an integrator, they should look for them first. I don't think they should try to adopt EOS before that. And finally, when you self-implement, I would say don't cherry pick just a few features, but try to adopt the whole complex system as it is written in the book. And only then, after maybe a year and a half or 2 years, decide where you will go a little bit, like you can tone down a little bit on some of the features, but at the beginning, strictly follow the system, because only then you will understand how the system really works and what benefits it can bring you.
I see. What means EOS for you now? How would you describe it?
EOS is a well-oiled machine. I mean, my business is really running a lot more smoothly. I see a huge difference before and after. So, for example, before, my company was very centralized. When we started with EOS, we had about, I think, 12 or 13 people, and many of those decisions were coming through me. So if someone had a problem that they couldn't solve on their daily basis, they would come up to me. They would write me on Slack, right? It's like, hey, Lydia, I have this problem with this customer. How should I solve it? And I would take my time off, think about the problem, put in the mental energy, and give them the answer, right? So then they would solve the problem and everything was working fine. But this obviously meant that, first of all, I was on Slack 24/7. I didn't get any meaningful work done because I was just reacting to people's problems all the time. And I was basically irreplaceable. So, I mean, I could go on holiday, but those problems would basically wait for me, right? And now with EOS, we have a structure in place where people know what they are accountable for. So we have these new positions and these people are growing into their positions. and they are making sure that they figure out the problems, right? So instead of having me as the decision maker for all the problems, we have the regular meetings, which is an incredible thing, which I love about EOS. And the person who has the issue brings it to the issues list. It's usually not very urgent in our business, doesn't need to be solved right away. And we have a rule. If you propose an issue, you need to also suggest a solution, right? So you don't just say, how do we solve this? You say, how do we solve this? And by the way, last time we did this and this and that, and these are the numbers, and this didn't work, and maybe we could do this, right? They need to think about it. Then in the meeting, I just basically listen to the people discussing the issues, and I am not the decision maker. And it's so liberating. It's so fascinating because I see that my team is actually really good. They can solve so many problems, and I didn't know it because I would be the one who they would turn to automatically. This was the system, how we worked. And I believe it's a system that most companies work in. It's a very natural process because you start a business on your own. You bootstrap the business, so you cannot hire a team right away. And then you hire 1, 2, 3 people and you give them little tasks. So they become your assistants. But then you turn out to be a genius with 1,000 helpers, right? And that can never liberate you. You can never grow that business. Scale it in any meaningful way. So for me, this really is a liberation process where my team is working much more intensively on solving the real issues in the business, and I have realized that they are actually much better at solving such issues than I thought before because I gave them the trust. I needed to take the step of letting go, as the grapevine, right? The story in the traction book. It's so true. You need to learn to let go. And be okay with the fact that it will not be a 100% solution at the beginning, or it will not be exactly the solution that you would think of, but it will be solved, and the company moves forward, and that's what it's all about, right?
All right. So we know that this is probably not for control freaks, right? But anyway, who would you recommend EOS to be implemented for? What kind of companies?
So actually, I do think that I used to be a control freak, and
really?
I think this is a process of my growing. Learning not to be one because it will never get you anywhere. I mean, this is my personal growth journey, right? I would say it's suitable for any business that has, I would say 7, 8, or 10 people, and that is already starting to struggle with the processes. And especially when you find out that you are somehow snowballed under all the work, and maybe you feel like you're the only person who really works or like who does the heavy lifting in the business. That's when you need an EOS, and that's when you need to make sure you really draw the accountability sheet. Because I meet people who tell me like, oh yeah, we have the accountability sheet, but I still do all the work. It's like, then how true is your accountability sheet really? Like, how honest? And then when they're really frank with themselves, like, yeah, okay, we have this person in the position, but actually I do the sales. And we have them there, but I solve the problems. Like, well, then they are not really in the positions, right? So I think it's a process of being frank with yourself and realizing how you need to structure the company so that you are not the decision maker.
Amazing. Thank you, Lydia, and good luck to you and your team. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.